Hello, everyone, and welcome to Truckers Voices. I'm your host, Tim Taylor, and we're excited to have you join us. Each week, we bring conversations with professional drivers, safety advocates, industry leaders, and the people who make the trucking industry the backbone of America. Whether you're rolling down the highway, parked for the night, or listening from home, this show's for you. Before we get started, we'd like to mention that the thoughts, opinions, and experiences shared on Truckers Voices belong to our guests and our hosts. They are their own personal views and do not represent the opinions or positions of any employer, company, organization, or association that may be affiliated with. We're here to share stories, learn from one another, and celebrate the people who keep America moving every day. So grab a gear, turn up the volume, right along as we bring the voices, the stories, and the heart of America in the trucking industry. This is Truckers Voices. Well, good Thursday evening, everybody. Where you listening to us today on the replay, or you listening to us right now live? We are so glad that you have decided to come and be with us here on Truckers Voices tonight. Man, we got a good guest coming on tonight. As always, all of our guests are good, and just keeps getting better and better and better and better. We're so glad that you're riding along with us tonight, and we have Lloyd Howell from TCW coming on, and we're going to get into a conversation with him. He's been on with us one time before, but he was on with us in the capacity of Reefs Across America. So he's got the whole show tonight, and he's going to talk with us a little bit about his journey, some of the stuff that he's done over the years, and I think you're going to be delighted to hear his story. But first, before we get started with that, I want to tell everybody that you can always find us on Reese Radio on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. And you can find them at Reese Radio, reaseacrossAmerica.org/radio. You can also find us on all the podcast platforms, as well as www.truckersvoices.com. I hope you've had a good week this week, and we definitely enjoy bringing these stories of truckers and how they got into the business and some of the stuff they're doing. But we also had some industry leaders on here, and last week we had Scott Reagan. Man, he brought a lot of good safety insight to the show. And as drivers, we need to remember the safety aspect of it, because every day that we come home safe, and we've done our job, and we've done our job well. But with that said, let me bring Steve Brand in here. Steve Brand, everybody. Steve, unmute your mic, brother. Unmute your mic.
There we go. Now everybody can hear me. How you doing, Tim?
How's that? For one time, Steve's been muted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My wife wish she had a mute button all the time. But, how's everybody out there, Trucker Voices? Man, appreciate y'all tuning in, listening, watching, And don't forget, truckersvoices.com. You can watch in past episodes, listen in past episodes. That's where you got to go. And hey, if you want to be a guest on the show, truckersvoices.com, and find that button, push that button, fill out that little application, and man, we'll put you on the schedule, and you can tell your story.
That's right. That little button on the website is be a guest. That's the button you got to push, and then just fill out a little short form, and we'll get back with you there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, Steve-O, how was your day of trucking today, brother?
It's a good day. I tell you what, we got a couple construction zones been giving us a little fit. They got 3 lanes going down to 1. It's not bad. I've been losing about 10 minutes sitting through it instead of going around it. But time I get back on I-71 and head south, man, that traffic is getting heavy. Yesterday and then today, because people's leaving, headed for the beach, headed wherever they're going. I don't know, but man, everybody just pay attention. Put them phones down. Don't be in a hurry.
Yeah, I think this week is going to be a little heavy, and this weekend because I think some people's trying to get some last minute travel in before the kiddos go back to school. And
Oh yeah.
I know coming out of Atlanta today, it was a little heavy in different spots there. Which Atlanta is Atlanta. I know I say that every week, but
Oh yeah.
it's it. If you drive through Atlanta, you can just about drive anywhere.
In my experience, Atlanta and Chicago is the only place you can go to at 2 a.m. on Christmas morning getting a construction backup.
You got that right. You have got that right. Well, Steve, I got something I'll do with you here real quick, and if you'll just kind of let's see, indulge me here just for a minute. And this is called, it's a new segment I'm doing. It's called Tim's Trucking Joke of the Week there. So I got a joke I want to tell you, Steve.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. So, Steve, my wife asked me if I loved her more than my truck. I told her, don't make me answer that question. I could lose either way.
Okay.
Oh, I got one more for you, Steve.
All right, bring it on.
All right, I pulled into the weigh station today. I really did. I pulled into the weigh station today. The officer looked at me and at the truck and said, "One of you's overloaded." I don't want to ask which one.
I understand. I understand. I pulled in a weigh station one night and they come over the intercom. He said, "Driver, slide that seat forward 2 hoes. You're a little heavy on them drives. Come on."
Some of these are those dry like dad jokes.
Oh yeah.
If you're in trucking, you might get it, but anyway, I'll try to get better. I'll try to get better as the week goes by.
I hear you. Ain't nothing wrong with it. It's all good. And we're having fun, brother. We're having fun and bringing notification to the industry and individuals in the industry. That's what it's about.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
Well, hey, let's not belabor this any longer. Let's bring our guest in here, Mr. Lloyd Howell from TCW.
man, that sounds good.
All right, so let's bring him in on our champion song.
Yes, sir.
Everybody, Mr. Lloyd Howell.
That's right, baby. Champion.
You are a champion because you are on Truckers Voices there tonight, Lloyd. It's great to have you back on, brother. And I know we had you on last time on Reese with Courtney George and her name escapes me right now, Patrice. And Lloyd, we're not hearing you on the podcast right now. You sound like you're kind of muted there. Talk to us, Lloyd.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We got you. We got you. So anyway, Lloyd, we're gonna get started with this podcast. So glad you come on. Thank you for carving out time for us tonight.
Appreciate you having me on, Tim. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Lloyd, how you doing, brother?
I'm pretty good. Just hanging out, Thursday
I
night.
hear you. I hear you. What a better trio to hang out together. I'm here to tell you now. I'm here to tell you.
I have to write Tim some jokes though.
Yeah, help me out, y'all. Y'all help me out. So that segment may not continue, but we'll see there, right?
That joke I told was kind of a hinder to myself, but it's all right though. It's all right, I've lost weight, so I don't have to slide that seat but one hole now. That's all.
Look, Lloyd, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So take it away, Steve.
All right, Lloyd, welcome to Truckers Voices, my friend.
Thanks,
Just
sir.
tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you first got into trucking, my friend.
All right. Well, like I said, my name is Lloyd Howell. I work for TCW now. I've been in the industry a little over 31 years. I'm married. Next month, I'll actually be married for 35 years. I have
Congratulations.
one daughter, 3 grandkids, son-in-law. And how I got into trucking was through a friend of mine. I was working at a different location where he came in and out of. And he was like, hey, you know what? You might be good at this trucking thing. Why don't you come on out and check it out? So I did, and that's where I started.
Well, there you go. And once you get in a truck, you never get out of it. That's the hard part about this industry. You love what you do and do what you love.
Well, when I first got in, I was like, well, we'll just see how it kind of goes. And after day one, it was over after that. I was in it.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, kind of elaborate. You've been in the industry over 30 years, and you kind of told us how you got started, but what really inspired you to choose trucking as a career once you stepped into it and kind of felt around a little bit? What really inspired you?
Well, I grew up in the era of let's see what the movie Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit. So you
Yep.
got trucking lore going on. So it took me a little while after I kind of get into it, but looking at the days and the opportunity to get out on the road, and I talked to a lot of drivers that I knew then working for a different company. So
Right.
when the opportunity came up, I took it and then just took full advantage of it and went on my way.
There you go. That's it gets in your blood and it never gets out. So you have over 2 million saved miles.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what does reacting that milestone, you know, mean to you personally? It's like when we get started, you never really dream or think about them million, 2 million mile milestones. What does that really mean to you personally?
Well, when I first started, my first mile was, kind of hair raising a little bit. So I was first mile fine. And then, I
Right.
set a little higher than that after that. But for me personally, I think it shows what kind of professional driver I am and that I take
Right.
what I'm doing. And then I get home every day to my family, and that's the most important thing. And then my act
Amen.
make sure that everybody I can contact had an opportunity to go home safely. So,
Exactly. I understand what you're saying, but looking back over your career, what has changed the most in trucking since you first started?
probably got to be technology, I would say, from when I started. So when I started, you had a pocket full of quarters, a pager, and a Rand McNally map. So that's pretty much how
Right.
you went around. You had to stop, find a payphone, call, make phone calls, be able to read a map, and then then cell phones came along, and now you've got GPS, you've got all the stuff in the trucks, the auto braking, the systems, and all that. So I think technology as a whole has probably been the biggest change overall, and I don't think it's really going to slow down for another couple of years. So it's a great tool to use, but like a friend of mine told me, if you are an average carpenter and I give you a brand new hammer, you're still just an average carpenter. So it still comes down to the driver in the box in the seat. So you need to make sure that your driver's already well trained, well prepared to go out before you put it to them.
Right. Okay. With all the changes that we go through and everything, and sometimes you lose a little bit of that spark, a little bit of that fire. But what has kept you passionate about driving after all these years and all them changes and everything?
Well, I think most thing, like I said, me personally, the milestones are one thing, but my passion became training and mentoring, working with new drivers. And so any chance I get to put a new driver on the road that I'm comfortable with, that's more important to me than another 500 whatever. So I kind of look at that, and then opportunities out in the public. I get to work with the public a lot, schools a lot, different organizations. So my passion's still safety, but I've said this before: the trucking industry is provided for me and my family. It's me to want to give back, whether it's talking to kids at school about safety, whether it's going to another organization, talking to their drivers. Anytime you can go somewhere and level up a driver by just talking to them or level up a group of drivers, then you've done a great thing.
I agree. I agree. I like to use the word. Somebody says say one word to maybe identify myself, and that's promotion. And it's not my promotion; it's your promotion. How can I promote you? How can I promote this industry? How can I promote safety to the new driver? Promotion. I really like that word because
Well,
you're escalating. You know, but
well, I like to look at training a little bit different than some other people do. You want to set an example and you want to set the standard for your training to get to.
right,
But if it's a new driver, like a mentor driver, somebody out of school, you have to come back down to where they're at, make that journey with them, not
right,
standing. So I kind of like to look from the side or from behind. That way, something happens, I'm there to pick them up and just push them along. I don't want to
Right.
leave. I want to take them with me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you answering my question. I'm going to turn it over to Tim here for a little bit. Tim?
Yeah, Lloyd, I'm going to get into something that we all appreciate, and we can all owe a debt of gratitude, and because we all have freedom. And I want to say, first of all, thank you for serving. And I want you to, before we really get into it, how that combines in with trucking, I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about your military service, how long you was in the military, and just kind of give us a little brief overview of that.
Well, my father was in the Navy for 21 years, and watching him and going to some of the events and and going to the bases with him kind of inspired me to do that as well. And I had a couple friends in high school, and they were all going at the same time that I wanted to go. So we kind of like group buddied in. When I went into boot camp, I was still only 17 years old, and when I got out of boot camp, I had just turned 18. So I was basically one of the youngest guys on base during boot camp. When your mom and dad have to sign off on the papers for you to go to boot camp when you're 17, dad, dad's fine. Your mom's not so fine, right?
Right, right.
It took a little talking to get her into it, but I spent 4 years in, and I got out. There were some family issues to take care of, so that kind of took precedence at the time. And then when I got out and took care of that, then I slowly got into a couple other careers, and then moved into trucking.
I got you. And you're a Marine, right?
That's where I
Okay.
get my personality from.
Yeah, yeah. Your volume just cut out just a little bit just then, but say that one more time.
So that's where I get my sparkling personality from.
I hear you, man. I hear you. You notice I didn't call you a soldier because I know better than that. You're a Marine.
Well, that's okay. I can find you.
I hear you. I hear you. Hey, so you've proudly served in in the United States Marines, and how did your time in the military prepare you for your career in trucking? How did that cross over?
I'd say there is a lot of similarities in the military and trucking, and most of it's due to individual people, right? So in the military, you have to have self discipline, you have to have focus, and you have to have determination. And if you don't have any of those, you're not going to make it in the military, and you're certainly not going to make it behind the wheel of the truck. So I think that getting that put into your system in the military, when you cross over to drive a truck, it's automatically there. I mean, true, the military is like it's a group. We have platoons, squads, and all that. And trucking, you have companies and you have all that good stuff. But still, even if you're out in the field, you as an individual have your own responsibilities, your own duties to do, and the people around you rely on you to do your job. And the same thing in trucking. I have responsibility to do, but there's a lot of people rely on me to do what I do correctly, right? Whether
Right.
it's on the road, whether it's mentoring another student, whatever the case may be. So having that self discipline and focus is very important, and I think that's how it carries over into what I do now.
I got you. I got you. And being in the military, you develop values and all that. And how does the values that you develop through the Marine Corps, how does that still guide you today behind the wheel?
Like I said, in the military, and it crossed over. So you're always mission driven, right? When you're in the military, you're mission driven. There's a mission, and in that mission, you have your responsibility to take care of. You have, like I said, you have to have the self discipline to do your job and not worry about what everybody else is doing, right? You have a focus, what you're supposed to focus on. And I think when you get behind the wheel of that truck, you know, you have that focus going on. You know what your mission is behind the wheel of that truck, right? And with that kind of background, it just sits in your head that this is your job, this is your responsibility, and you have more responsibilities than you think you do. You think you have. So I think that adds on to the whole safety thing as well. You know, in the military, there's regulations just as much as there in the trucking industry. And if you don't follow regulations in the military, you screwed up. If you don't follow regulations in the trucking industry, you screw up. So I think it's just as important that you follow both of them all the way around.
Right, right, and that's a very, very good answer to that question. And I was thinking back a while ago, when you were talking to Steve and leadership, and teaching other people and stuff like that. How has the military helped shape your leadership style?
Like I said, my leadership style is more outside of the military. It's more one on one. It's more. It's a personal thing for me. Like if I have a mentor student or whatever, you know, I'm personally invested in what they're doing through me, through the company, through the industry as well, and to them. And I always try to tell them, look, I'm here for you. I'm not here for me. But one of the guys that I had one time, and he was former military. So, you know, you get two guys with former military, one's an Army guy, one's a Marine guy. It took us about 3 days to get that whole, military thing out of the way. Because he's like, you know, you're being a little demanding. I'm like, well, you're an Army guy, so you should be able to figure that out.
Right, right,
But I was told a while back, probably many many years ago, when I was a supervisor, look, the military's fine, but you got to tone it down a little bit in the civilian world. And it took a little bit to tone it down some, but the basic practice is there. If you have a platoon sergeant or a lieutenant, right, in the military, their job is not to watch out for them. Their job is to watch out for their squad or their
right.
company. So as a leader, I take that. That's how I take it as it's my trucking company, it's my students, it's my industry, it's mine. So I have to be personally invested in it to care about it enough for it to be mine.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, if there was a military veteran that was thinking about transitioning into the trucking industry, what advice would you give that veteran? What advice would you give to him?
First thing I would tell them is that you, as a former military guy, have the mental capacity to drive this truck. You're going to have that background, that mental acuity to be able to follow the rules. Right? You're going to have it already. My advice to them would be, like I tell anybody, do your homework. Go talk to drivers. I send, I tell people all the time, go to a truck stop, talk to a couple of drivers at the fuel island, and get a good idea of what they're talking about. You know, ask them about what they're running, ask them about what they're, ask, but don't ask one. You need to ask about 9 or 10 or 11, and kind of get a good feel for it. And I tell them the military guys all the time, I'm like, you know, it's a lot the same. You are going to have regulations, rules, structure. It's all there. You're ready for it. You just have to take that step into it.
Are we still on there?
I think. Oh, Tim's gone now.
He must have got muted or something there, but yes, sir. I agree with everything you say, my friend. And we're going to kind of shift gears here and talk about your life at TCW.
All right.
If you could tell us about your role at TCW and what makes it a great company to drive for.
Well, of course, my main role is being a professional driver, right? So my main focus there is always going to be safety. So that's my main role. Um, TCW is a great company to work for because they care about their drivers. Right?
Right.
They come out, they do a lot of road work out on the road with drivers. They talk to drivers. They involve drivers. But I think the most important part is it's the company is small enough where it's still a family, right? We went from owned to employee owned a couple years ago, and so we're all still one big family.
Right.
And we also have our policy. I can phone and call anybody I want to, talk about anything I want to.
Right.
They will stop and listen because they care. It's
Yes,
like
sir.
I look at it this way: we are a smaller company with a bigger heart. But what they do is we have other drivers involved with state road teams. I'm on the road team as well. And I've also got involved across America, CAT, the Lucky 43 Foundation, and a few others. And they're always staying behind me.
Right.
And recently participated a lot in the Safety Drive for a Cure. So we got involved by equipment there. So they not only do they care about their company, I mean, their drivers and people that work for them, they care and reach out to their communities too. And I think that's important. And that's one of the main reasons I stayed.
Yes, sir. I like it. I like it all. Now, you're considered a master coach. What is a master coach and what does that position involve?
The best way to describe a master coach is kind of like a peer to peer mentoring kind of program, right? So we basically added a level between, say, like your safety manager and the driver. Now, you're not a supervisor and you're not technically a safety guy, but you've been there long enough and you've earned the respect and the trust of the drivers enough where you can go talk to them about certain things or they can come talk to you about certain things. The thing about trust and respect is they work hand in hand, but you can't have one without the other. So a driver can trust, but I mean, a driver can't trust you if he doesn't respect you, and he can't respect you if he doesn't trust you. So you got to kind of work and build that trust and that respect with each driver. So if something does happen, you want to go talk to them. It's kind of like just a normal conversation, and that's as far as it goes. So they try to make it where that peer to peer mentoring and talking to drivers kind of keeps at a driver level.
Okay. All right. What do you enjoy most about doing that job, mentoring drivers and stuff?
Because, like I said earlier, I take a personal investment in people, right? Especially drivers. Even drivers that have been in my company for 10 or 12 or 15 years. I know drivers been on the other side of the state, or we got drivers in South Carolina. They're really good friends, but I care about them as people. When I meet them, first thing I know is, how many miles you got? How's your wife? How's your kids? There's not a driver in my terminal. I don't know if they're not married or single, have kids, don't have kids, or what's going on with them half the time. So when I get to talk to them, the way I build that trust and respect with drivers is I get to know them a little bit. And with a mentor student, especially, you spend so much time with them, they almost get to be like, I'll say this funny, but it's almost like your kid, right? You bring them in and you kind of raise them in the industry through that mentoring program, but you never let them go after that. You stay with them. You follow them along their career, especially in the same company in the same. I have 2 or 3 mentoring students that have been there for like 4 or 5 years now, and they will still call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and be like, "Hey, I got a question." And I've got no problem with and that's the kind of relationship I have with a lot of drivers is, you know, I want them to call me. I don't want them to be stuck somewhere. Call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Call me at 10 o'clock at night. I don't care what time you call me. But if you're in a bind, I want to get you out of that bind before something else happens. So
Exactly. And that's a good mentor. That's a good mentor. You call me anytime, 24/7, and I'll help you every way I can. Um, we all got when we mentor, we train or whatever, we all got our little knacks, little nicks, and whatever you want to call it there. But what is one lesson that you try to teach every rookie driver before they head out on their own?
in blunt terms, it's to stop before you do something you don't understand.
Right.
I mean, that's basically as simple as it gets. If you get into a situation, or just say you're going down the road and it doesn't look right or something looks wrong, stop somewhere, figure it out before you carry on. Stop, call somebody before you do something and carry on. You get to a loading dock, stop, get check it out, see what you're doing first. So basically, it's to stop and make sure that you're going into it with the best knowledge possible. And if you don't have it, find out.
Right. I like that. I like
And
that. What was that? You kind of cut out on me a little bit.
and to slow down. I told one of my guys, I'm like, nobody's impressed you get there first. I said
Exactly.
they're impressed you get back safely.
And exactly. You don't have to turn into that chipper receiver on five wheels. You just don't have to do that. But so far in your career of mentoring students and teaching students and training students, uh, have you had any of your students just totally surprise you becoming an outstanding professional driver? I mean, just blow it out of the water.
I wouldn't the person I'm thinking about. I wouldn't say is surprised, but I'm really proud of her. Really, really proud of her because of the route, and she's very attentive. Put it that way. There's there's not a pre-trip she's missed. There's not a mile marker she's missed. There's not an opportunity she's missed. So her, I'm very proud of her. So I don't want to say surprise because surprise will want to lead you to think that maybe there was a chance she wasn't gonna be right.
Right.
So I look at it as a proud moment for me to watch her grow. And we have 4 women in our terminal now, and they all do an outstanding job. So surprised, no. Proud, yes.
Amen. Sounds good to me. Thank you, sir. Tim?
Yes, sir. Let's move on into let's shift gears here. Let's put it that way. Let's shift gears here, and let's go into the safety part of your career. And safety has absolutely been a obviously it's been a big part of your career. And what's your personal definition of being a safe professional driver every day, Lloyd?
Well, mine would be that your mindset when you leave that terminal in the morning is that you are going to go out, you are going to put on your best effort, however you want to look at it. But first and foremost is going to be safety. You know, the way I look at it, there's only a certain amount of things that I control as a driver, right? And the 5 rules I normally use are get enough rest so you're mentally able, mentally good, a good pre-trip route planning so you know your equipment's good, speeding and following distance. You can manage that just fine. If you manage that, you'll be great. Eliminating distractions, get rid of those, and your positive attitude towards safety being your only priority. Now, once you've mastered that, you can take all that other energy and use it for defensive driving skills.
Yeah.
Now you're for the people who don't necessarily know how to drive, but as long as those 5 basics are ingrained in your head, when you pass the speed limit sign, you don't have to think about slowing down. You just automatically do. If you get too close to a car, you automatically back up without even thinking about it, kind of deal. So that gives all my other attention to traffic, construction areas, situations, weather, all things you cannot control. Now you get to pay more attention to, and so that's basically how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's some good advice and some good keys. Anybody out there that's listening, listening audience, I mean, you can take those and apply them, and it'll make you a safe driver. Everything you just said, and speaking of that, speaking of making yourself a good driver, you got to have good safety habits. And do you have any good safety habits that's helped you avoid accidents? With over 2 million miles, obviously there is some good safety habits.
Well, besides those 5, which I said, and that's 5 I preach to just about anybody. As long as you're getting those, as long as you have those 5 down, you got your opportunity to concentrate on your defensive driving skills. But for me personally, I don't drive any different if I'm early, if I'm on time, or I'm late. It doesn't matter. You know, I drive with the same focus, the same idea, the same mentality to want to get to point A back to point B in a safe manner. It doesn't matter. You know, if I'm late, I'm late. If I'm on time, I'm on time. If I'm early, I'm early. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is me getting from here to there how I'm supposed to, and how I'm supposed to do it safely.
Yeah, yeah, and as professional drivers, we all have long days, and and we have days that we become fatigued and mentally fatigued, and how do you stay mentally focused during long days like that?
Well, I'm a big podcast guy now, so I like podcasts, and every once in a while I'll chime in on one of yours, listen to one of your old ones I haven't been able to listen to. Yep, and you get into podcasts, but sometimes that gets a little bit old, so your mind gets used to it. So then I'll switch over to the radio, listen to the radio for a little while. And sometimes it's just good to pull over and rest area and get out and walk the rest area for a little while. Just break up the monotony, clear your head a little bit, get a little bit of oxygen going in your blood, and then get back on the road. But I think with the whole rest thing and all that, it keeps your mind clear enough, right, when you're going down the road. And Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, that's when you can tell it really starts kicking in about that time of the thing. But as long as you're focused on what you're doing and you know what your end goal is, you want to get home safely on Monday afternoon, just as much as you want to do on Friday afternoon. So as the week goes on, how much you focus and pay attention has to increase just a little bit more to make up for that a little bit, I think. So that's what I mean. That's how I do it anyway.
Okay, all right. So, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest safety challenges that professional truck drivers face today?
From a personal standpoint, I think you have to be able to well, you have to be able to prioritize safety over everything else. It doesn't really matter, you know. You have to be able to avoid the pressures of your load's going to be late. You have to avoid the pressure of, you know, that dispatcher, blah, 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 blah. I don't listen to none of that. So be able to balance, what you need to do, but still prioritize safety over everything else. I and sometimes my boss don't like it, but I teach all my, student drivers or mentor drivers, even some of the guys that come over. I'm like, there is a time where you can say no. You know, I said, but if you're going to say no, at least have a good reason to do it. You just can't say no because you want to. Sometimes you have to be like, hey, I can't do that because of blah 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 blah. But at least have a legitimate reason behind it. Now, I've told my boss no quite a few times. And it might have been weather related, might have been fatigue related. You know, I'm not too scared to walk away from a run and go, I can't do it. I got to go home. It's just not going to happen. I had too long of a week. Something happened over the weekend, or whatever the case may be. And I tell my drivers all the time, I'm look, just stop, go to the rest area, sleep for a little while, wake up. If you still can't get it, call the office and they'll figure something out. But none of that's worth you endangering yourself or anybody else for. I'll tell you what, a the first company I worked for, I had what you call veteran driver, professional driver, and he rode with me one day, and I was probably a little too close to the car in front of us. Actually, I was too close to the car in front of us, but it's like within my first 3 or 4 months driving. So, and at that early stage of my career, you don't understand a lot of that. It takes a little time to learn everything and kind of adjust everything as you're going. And he asked me, he said, would you have tailgated that car if your wife and kid was in it? And I was like, no, sir. He was like, well, some of your wife and kids in it, so why don't you not do that? And I was like, gotcha. And it kind of gave me that message, like, hey, there's none of that. And he told me later, he said, I'll put this as succinct as I can. He said, there's not a reason you can give me, and there's not an excuse you can make for jeopardizing somebody else's safety. And that just kind of struck me at that point. And I think from that point on, it really hit hard that me being behind that wheel, I was responsible for everybody around me. And that just kind of set me on that new path, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and that's good. I mean, that is very good. And you're an Alabama road team captain as well as an America's road team captain. And what can people that's driving around in their cars, or, which we fondly call them four wheelers, what can they do to make the roads safer to to be around commercial vehicles?
Well, I give you the answer everybody else does is put them phones down, right, and concentrate on what you're doing. But I think, like you said, through the America's Road Team, through the Alabama's Road Team, but even, other state road teams, even companies have road teams. I think part of our responsibility and obligation is to get out information to the public on how to operate safe around big trucks, like the Share the Road program and whatnot. I said, but, if drivers understood that trucks can't stop on a dime, that they don't react like cars do, and hanging out beside a truck for any reason is not really a good idea for many, many reasons, not just because we don't want you there. There's reasons for it and there's reasons not to. I think if we keep getting that message out and keep educating people and that word gets around and around and around, I think less people will do it, and it's going to create a safer road conditions for everybody.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I've got one more question, and we'll flip it over to Steve there. If you could change one driving habit of the general public, and you could do it like the snap of a finger overnight, what would it be? Distracted driving, right?
Now, but I can back that up with probably speeding. You know, when you're in that truck, 9, 10 hours a day, you see a lot of stuff, right? You see crazy stuff. People on cell phones, like we talked about, distracted driving. But speeding probably has to be number two, because I've gone through construction zones and had my doors blown off my truck. Just going down the interstate, you can have somebody whip by you at 90 miles an hour. I think that if we could get rid of that and distracted driving and get everybody to pay attention a little bit more, I think we'd all be better off for it.
Sounds good to me. I don't know about y'all's trucks, but my truck I drive has actually got a detector, radar detector on it, and so when a car passes me or a truck, and I can see how fast they're going. And some of these people, mercy, in motorcycle season, oh, it's crazy.
If it's a bull hauler, I can tell you how fast it's going. I can tell you that.
Exactly. And I'm gonna try to do this real quick, but in Tim's jokes, it's like Texas. Texas State Trooper, if he goes 10 mile an hour over the posted speed limit, he's got to have his lights on. If he goes 20 over, he's got to have lights and siren. Anything faster than that, he's got to have a bullhorn for an escort. But okay, let's go on to something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's America's Road Team, brother. Congratulations again on serving as America's Road Team captain. What honor does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's humbling. I can tell you that, because I went through the selection process twice.
Okay.
And I got selected the second time, and Tim up there, Mr. Question Asker, the second time around. So we had a little bit of that. It's all good. But once you get into that area, you understand what your role as a professional truck driver got you there. Right. Because it takes a lot to get there, and it takes a lot to stay there. But you meet some of the most diverse professional truck drivers that you'll ever meet in your career. When I went to selection, there's OTR guys, there's line haul guys, there's everybody. And like Tim said earlier, you never stop learning. You want to go to a place where everybody has a story and knows something, that's the word to go.
Right.
Because their intelligence of the trucking industry is super high. So you can have conversations with drivers from anything from regulations to trucks to equipment, whatever.
Right.
You've got a question to answer yourself. But I think overall, though, it was a pinnacle of everything I worked up to that point, and finally crossed over where now that provided new opportunities for me to explore by getting out with the America's Road Team. So it was an opportunity that stepped up to another opportunity, and I think that's kind of how I've treated my career, especially over the last 10 years. There's an opportunity, grab it. There's over here, grab it.
Right.
Work out. Some may not be your thing, But if there's an opportunity there, I would go.
Right. What's been your favorite experience representing America's road team?
I'm going to have to say it's going to be the run to Arlington, the Race Across America to Arlington. I mean, with my father being a veteran and myself being a veteran, I think if you ever had the opportunity to do it, it's like nothing you've ever. It will change your life forever. I promise you.
Right.
But I think once you understand how truck drivers in the trucking industry support the veterans at those events, you would have a greater respect and understanding how the trucking industry thinks.
Okay. Okay. How important is it to educate the public about what professional drivers really do?
I think it's really important, but I think that what we need to tell the public too, not only what we, but about who we are anyway, right? There's stereotypes of this thing, stereotypes of that thing. I think that people need to understand that we are husbands, fathers, grandfathers, wives, sisters, brothers. We're just normal people like they are. We go to church, we go to the store, we hang out, we go play golf. We're the same as everybody else. Just the profession we're in. That's just what we do for a living. And I think we need to humanize professional truck drivers more to what normal people see.
Okay. So, kind of follow up with that. What's a misconception about truck drivers that you wish everyone understood?
We don't own the road. You know,
Hey, man, I hear
they
that a lot. You people think you own the road. No, no, we don't.
don't. No. When people tell me that, I'm like, it's actually wrong. You know, you know, that is for the most part in the trucking industry. And like I tell them, I'm like, that's our office. That's where we work. That's our place of work. You know, and I explain to them, share a road program and sharing the road, and we have to work in the same space, right? You have to be there, and I have to be there. So it's better to work together than it is apart. I try to explain to them, you know, I might make this run every day, and I might see I see the same cars like 4 or 5 times. We leave at the same time in the morning. You see the same car, you see the same police officers, and all the time.
Right.
Still, we still have to get to the point where we all work together versus me versus you thing.
Right. Exactly. But why do you think professional drivers are some of the most important people keeping America moving?
Pardon?
I said, why do you think a professional driver are some of the most important people keeping America moving?
Well, if you look at a study, if every professional driver took 2 weeks off, the economy would come to a screeching halt in about 10.
Right.
Estimates are you'll run out of fuel in about 3 days, you'll run out about food in about 5, and you'll run out of everything else in about 10 days. So why we're most important is one, we provide for 80% of all communities in the country.
Right.
We move over 70% of all the freight in the country. So without that, when you get up in the morning, there's going to be nowhere to go. You know, you won't have a car to drive. You won't be able to go anywhere because there won't be anything to do. So I think the message I try to get across to people is like, look, you know, everything you touch, everything you use, everything you look at, everything you borrow, even the car you drive, was either touched by or hauled by a truck or delivered by a truck sometime in its little career, in its lifespan. So the reason we're that important is because we keep the economy running. And if the economy doesn't run, nobody runs.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up here, Lloyd, and I want to talk to you a little bit about patriotism and stuff like that. And I was reading something recently, and that's how I got some of these questions that I got for you. You recently shared a wonderful story about attending a bicentennial celebration in 1976, and how trucks fascinated you as a little boy. And how has your perspective changed since then?
Well, that was a long time ago too, Tim. 50 years is a long time. But Well, like I said in the article, when I was a kid, we went to the bicentennial celebration. That was at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. I went with my father and my brother and my mother and all the other naval families were out there, and it's the whole big thing, you know. And we saw some cool trucks out there. They had trucks and the whole 9 yards. So you got to do all that, and like I said, smoking the band of time. My dad taught me when I was a kid, you do the whole thing when you get beside a truck, the whole 9 yards. So it was all a big deal. But perspective has changed now that I know that my industry helped build that base, right? I don't know how many thousands of truckloads of equipment went in there, but it did. And that's how that base got built. Every supply that got on that base was brought by a truck. And then you expand that to every military base in the country. How many millions of truckers made all that happen by delivering all that equipment? So, you know, like I said, I'm a military guy. You know, it touches me sometimes because I look back now. I'm like, that's really cool. But you know what's really cool is that somebody in my past from my industry made that happen, and that's what makes me proud.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking about being proud, that kind of lead me into my next question. There, what does patriotism mean to you today?
To me, it means the same thing it did the day I signed to go in the Marine Corps. You know, you have to have a love for your country, but you also have to have, the self-respect and all that. Our country is one of the greatest countries in the world because of all the freedoms that we have. Many, many people, many, many generations before I was in the military made that happen.
Right.
So, owe that amount of respect. So, patriotism is respecting those who gave to give us what we have now. That's how I view patriotism. Now, I did serve. Some people don't serve. It doesn't really matter. If you have a love for this country, it doesn't matter if you are a doctor, right? Or a medic or EMT or a ditch digger or a crane builder. It doesn't matter. You believe in what the country stands for, you're a patriot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got one more question. I'm going to let Steve jump in there and ask you a few questions. We are at the post trip part of the show, and we're fixing to post trip this show and get it ready for the next guest. So let's go ahead with these last few questions. Steve's going to ask you a few more questions. I got a fun bonus question at the very end. And so, anyway, how important is it, Lloyd? Uh, for today's professional driver to remember, the generation of truck drivers who came before them?
I think it's really important, and I teach when I talk to new drivers all the time that I'm training or working with. I'm like, when I was a new driver, I was the same person you were, right? I was the guy who showed up at some place holding the bill of lading upside down, couldn't figure out where to go, that kind of deal, But the drivers back in those days, if you had an issue, they would stop and help you. If you had a question, you could ask any of them. It didn't really matter. They would stop and help you. So I think, you know, and I tell them, I'm like, one day you're going to be me in the trucking industry, and you are going to have a newer student or a newer driver come along. So I respected my that came before me because trust me, I did not get to over 2 million miles by myself.
Right.
There was somebody in my ear, or always somebody to talk to, advice to get, mentors to have. You had Charlie Salter on 2 weeks ago. One of my current mentors now. I will go to him for a lot of stuff simply because he's got a vast amount of knowledge in areas of trucking I do not. So when it comes to learning something, Charlie's my guy.
Right.
Tell him, like, I have a great amount of respect for you as a new driver, right? Which is why I took the time. I'm going to take 20 or 30 days out of my normal life, and I'm going to spend them with you in this truck because I have respect for you. So you move on, you need to look back and say, hey, that guy helped me get along in my career. So when you get up a little bit further, you need to reach back and help a new person get along in their career. We all have to help each other move forward. You can't break off and do your own thing in this industry. You have to be able to reach back and help and pull somebody with you.
Okay. if a new person, you was, I don't know, say you was down at Walmart or a local convenience store, and you was in your truck, and a young person walk up to you and said, "Excuse me, sir, I'm considering a trucking as a career." What would you tell them?
I would tell them that me personally, I find the trucking industry and my career fits me great, right? Because of my background and all that. But I would tell them, like, if you're interested in a career in trucking, I've got time. I'll talk to you right now about it. And I'll allow them to ask me questions. I'll give them advice. I'll even let them get up in the truck if they want to, ask questions, touch, the whole 9 yards. I think that the more you interact with people who are interested in your industry, the more positive feedback you'll get from them, and the more interested. If you just be like, "Hey, go talk to a recruiter," and they'll walk away, then they're not going to be really interested because they've got that bad vibe to start with that you gave them. So if somebody's interested, take the time and talk to them, and that'll give them a good leg up at least that somebody in the industry cares enough to listen to them to begin with.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I tell you what, this hour is almost over, so I got one last quick one for you, and that's before we wrap up. What's one message you'd like to have to leave, you know, with every professional driver out there listening today?
I'd like to pass on to everybody, especially in my past. Thank you for getting me to where I'm at, and I appreciate what everybody does. And when it comes to safety, just remember it's always going to be about safety first. It doesn't matter what you're hauling, where you're going, or anything like that. Your main priority is to be safe. And like I said, no reason you can give, no excuse you can make. You can't make anybody unsafe. So practice, 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 and be patient. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Lloyd. And I've got one last question for you here, and it's a bonus. It's a fun question. I always like to ask a fun question at the end. And if you had to drive coast to coast, with a famous person riding shotgun, and they had to stay awake the whole trip, who would you choose? And what's the very first thing that you would ask that person?
Has to be a famous person.
Well, maybe famous in your eyes, Charlie.
Well, if I had to choose, it'd probably be my dad. You know, and I think if we had to go coast to coast, we'd have to leave Jacksonville from, you know, that's where we stayed a lot of our life, and that's where, I got this whole interest in trucking in the Navy and the military. So we'd have to start there and go across. But I think he would be proud to know that what I do now through stories that we travel on, right? What I've built, what I've done, where I've been, who I've mentored, who I've helped, who I've talked to, who I've sacrificed for. I think that would make him proud. And as the story goes along the line, once we get to the other coast, first thing I'll tell him is like, look, we built that, we built that base on this coast for you, and we built this base on this coast for the other guy. And I think that's what would make me more proud of me and myself as well. When I first got into the industry, I didn't understand the whole what it all entails, right? When I first started, it was like, hey, get in the truck, you'll take off, and you come back, and you do. It took a little while to understand the whole grand idea of trucking and the industry and what the truckers do and what the responsibilities are. But once I learned that, my dad was alive for a little bit during my trucking career, and he was always real proud, real happy with what I was doing. I think the pinnacle I'm at now, I think would just be a fun ride to talk about cross country and have a good old time.
Well, Lloyd, thank you for coming on Trucker's Voice this night. We're fixing to wrap the show up. We only got basically a minute or so to wrap the show up, so we're going to do it real quick. Like, I want to thank you. I want to thank Reese across America for allowing us, for the platform that we get to use, and also Patrick Loro in his music. But anyway, Patrick supports us here. I just want to say thank y'all for joining us here at Trucker's Voices tonight. And y'all got to remember that there's a lot of people that's traveling the highway this weekend, tomorrow. It's getting busy. And as I always say, you got to look out for those who aren't looking out for themselves. Steve Brand, give us a word of advice, and we're going to wrap this show up.
Thanks a million, folks, for listening to us. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time on Truckers Voices. And always remember, most important trip is that trip home.
Hang on, Lloyd. We'll be right back with you.
We'd like to thank our special guests for joining us and sharing your story with the trucking community. We truly appreciate your time and impact you're making on the industry. A special thank you goes out to our sponsor, Patrick Laurel, for supporting Truckers Voices with his incredible music, and you can find Patrick's music on Bandcamp and by visiting patricklaurelmusic.com. We'd also like to give a special thank you to Reese Across America Radio for helping us share the stories of America's professional drivers. And to all you listeners, we can't say enough but thank you to y'all for being a part of this Truckers Voices family. Be sure to visit truckersvoices.com to catch all of our latest episodes and all the latest updates. Until next time, keep that shiny side up, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next episode of Truckers Voices. I'm Steve Brand, he's Tim Taylor.